On July 1st, 1980, a new luxurious Hyatt Regency hotel was opened in Kansas City, Missouri. One of the main attractions of the hotel was its weekly tea dance parties held every Friday night. On July 17, 1981, thousands of partygoers congregated in the atrium of the hotel to participate in one of these parties. The atrium of the hotel was very striking in its design, with its main features being three walkways or skywalks on the second, third, and fourth floors, suspended from the ceiling of the building with thin metal rods. At 7:05 p.m., while the party was in full swing, one of the structural support systems on the fourth floor walkway failed under load from its own weight and the weight of people dancing on it. The fourth floor walkway collapsed onto the second floor walkway located directly beneath it, and both walkways came crashing down to the lobby floor filled with hundreds of patrons. The third floor walkway, which was offset from the other two, was left unaffected. This shocking failure resulted in one of the worst engineering disasters in US history, claiming the lives of 114 people and injuring over 200 more. In this video, we will identify the cast of characters involved in the construction of the hotel and the ethical principles they possessed or lacked. We will identify the root cause of the failure that led to the disaster, and we will identify the steps we would take to rebuild the organization.
The Hyatt Regency Hotel was designed by the Crown Center Redevelopment Corporation in 1976. A professional engineering firm called GCE and architect planners were hired to provide all structural engineering services for the implementation of the hotel project. The Haven Steel Company also signed a subcontract in order to fabricate and erect the steel for the hotel.
An external challenge which was faced was a change to the original design whereby instead of having the two suspended walkways being held by one pair of hanging rods, the second walkway would be held by an individual pair of hanging rods which is then connected to the first walkway. This would be putting stress upon the nuts, bolts and washers suspending the first walkway. This change was proposed by the fabricators Haven Steel Company and mistakenly approved by the structural engineers GCE International Corporation due to miscommunication and a lack of time. An internal challenge which was faced was GCE also stated that on 3 separate occasions their request for an on-site representation during the construction phase wasn't acted upon by the owner, Crown Center Redevelopment Corporation, due to additional costs and low funds.
There were many deficient principles displayed by the engineering company. The first one being poor communication. When the drafts for the change in the walkway design were submitted to the engineering company, they were returned to the fabricators, stamped and approved. There were no queries or comments. Secondly, there were no calculations done by the engineers to validate the design change. If they did, the flaw in the design would have been spotted and rectified. Thirdly, the engineers displayed negligence in the whole scenario. They were entrusted to ensure that the construction progressed properly and safely. They failed to do so. And lastly, their overall involvement was very unprofessional. Not being thorough and diligent in their work made them appear to be unprofessional.
The only sustainable principle that was displayed by the organization was that the engineers Duncan and Gilliam took full responsibility for the collapsing of the walkway. It was important they take responsibility as engineers because that shows their maturity and their ability to lead because we all know engineers are leaders.
As me, Salina Spencer, being the lead engineer, I will run background checks on all my employees to ensure that no safety violations were committed during their past work experience. I will also build a strong ethical relationship with all my employees to have a steady platform for communication so no mishaps would take place in the workplace. I would also implement a revision class every 6 months so that my technicians would be up to par with their skill set, which would also remind them of their duties as an engineer. And also, I would have a no tolerance for shortcuts because they can, in return, cause citizens to lose their lives.
If I, Khashiff Nurse, had the task of rebuilding this company, being the head engineer, the first thing I would do is instill a new value system. Instill values such as integrity, competence at all times, and accountability. And all staff must pledge to these values. There would also be no tolerance for not living up to the company's new value system. And also, I would ensure that all clients get the best service from our company.
If I, Akins Lorde, was given the esteemed task of rebuilding the organization of JC International, my first task would have been to reshuffle and rearrange all persons that were involved in the disaster. I would have renamed the company and put a new face to the firm, and I will also reassure all my colleagues about their duties and responsibilities of being involved in this company, and they will have to hereby pledge to upkeep high standards, and anyone fails to live by our oath will be seriously penalized and will be terminated off this new brand.
As a lead engineer, the first thing I would do to try and build back the company would be set boundaries and codes for my company and workers to follow suit. Secondly, I would fire everyone that had a major or extreme role in this accident and then employ outside trusted contractors to work with us so that it would give our clientele a sense of insurance that our engineers and designs can be trusted once again.
If I, Andre Armstrong, was given the opportunity to rebuild the organization, the first thing I would do is issue a public apology to the families of the victims of the Walkway collapse. Secondly, I would relieve all those who failed to follow protocol of their duties and implement a new value system. Finally, I would establish a review board consisting of 3 to 5 experienced engineers with proven records of good ethical practices to ensure all changes in designs are properly identified and calculated to prevent further critical failures. The Hyatt Regency Walkway collapse serves as a cautionary tale to all young engineers. Every decision you make has a consequence. Every choice you make has a result. As young engineers, we must recognize the responsibilities and duties placed on our shoulders. We must take it upon ourselves to develop strong value systems based on ethical and professional principles. It is up to us to lead by example so that we can provide a better society for future generations.